Welcome back to another mini episode of this, the Authentic Man podcast. If I was more of a perfectionist, I'd edit that out, but I'm not going to. Today on this mini episode, if you've never listened to me before, I'm a men's dating, relationship and intimacy coach. I particularly work with men who are scared of commitment, who are afraid of losing their freedom, who potentially struggle with intimacy and closeness, especially emotional intimacy with themselves, with their partners, holding the space of emotions and so forth. What we commonly would know as kind of avoidant leaning men. If you're not sure if you're avoidant, you're going to listen to me talk about me and it might give you some clues, but I've also got a number of episodes, one from last week, for instance, that really tells you the signs about being avoidant. But this is a really personal piece, actually. As you may or may not know, depending on how often you listen, this is a period of my time where my partner is 38 weeks pregnant, and I've been reflecting a lot on my journey to becoming a father. Not quite yet, not there yet, but I'm almost there. And that actually really, there was a lot of fear for me. And to say that fear's disappeared actually would be untrue as well. The fear still exists, it's still there, I still feel it sometimes. But there's definitely a period in my life where, I didn't want to have kids at all. I didn't want to have kids at all. I was like, why would I want to bring kids into this world? We live in a terrible world. It's cruel. It's harsh. I didn't want to have the burden and responsibility of it as well. I didn't want to fuck up my kids, or inflict on them what was inflicted on me. There's definitely a point in my life where I could only see that all I could do is be like my own father, that there was no choice. So I didn't want to have kids. And, even this time, not so much this time last year, maybe early last year, there was some conversations me and my partner were having, and I was really like trying to put it off. I was like, we need another couple of years. We need to, our businesses need to be in better places and blah, blah, blah. This kind of like, there'll be a better time later on. Now is not the best time. And actually created a lot of tension in our relationship at times. And yeah, I was scared. When it came down to it, I think there was a lot of fear under there of like, repeating the mistakes I had experienced, not being good enough as a father, not being financially in the best place to have kids. Also fear about losing my own freedom and avoiding the uncomfortability and only seeing negative. This is something that was really there for me as a man. I think as avoidant men that I work with is we see commitment and children and our commitment, having a child is a commitment. We see relationships with a commitment as holding us back, as causing us to lose our freedom and getting in the way of the things that we want to create in our life. And that was really alive for me there as well. And it was just at the time, it was just difficult, We were talking about having kids, and I saw that from a really physical point of view, when I would talk about it, there would just be this huge stress, this huge weight in my solar plexus. I would struggle to speak. I wouldn't be able to form my sentences. Like, I didn't know what to say. I was worried about saying the right or the wrong thing. It was like constant for me. This kind of fear around it. Whenever we talk about having kids, I remember at the beginning of the year talking about having kids and just feeling really stressed and worried and wanting to run away. That's what was present for me. And I know that, there's other men like that because I work with them and I coach them. And I guess I'm saying here, I'm just normalizing this thing of like being afraid, but also that the fear doesn't have to stop you. It's a big part of the coaching work I do with men in general. If it's relationships or dating and intimacy, it's like we have fear, but fear doesn't have to stop us. But we have to see that we have to see that truth, because sometimes it's like the fear will masquerade as like very good reasons, as being reasonable. Like, could my business be in a better place? Definitely. I've only been running my business for just over 3 years. Of course, there'd be a better time. Waiting another year and a half would be better. But sometimes you have to kind of leap forward into things. So what did I do to move through all that fear? One of the things I did to move through the fear of kind of becoming a father and moving to fatherhood and having children, one of the big things is I talked to a lot of dads that I really respected, men who I knew and respected. And even if it was just having a little bit of a conversation with them, or one of my friends, we were almost talking every month, every other month, and talking to men I knew, men I really respected, old friends of mine who had kids, and being like, what's been beautiful about it? What's been difficult? What would you want to do differently if you were to do it again? Some questions like that, or what sort of parent would you describe yourself as, or what parent would you like to be? That really helped, because I saw that them as men that I saw were doing a really good job they also saw the faults in themselves, or they also saw the struggles that were going on for them that they would have wanting to be different, or would have wanting to show up differently. But I also then heard about the joy that what I often call this for people is it's the same with relationships as well. With a good relationship, what I'm about to say is there's a joy that we cannot know until we actually experience the joy. Right? And a friend of mine put it to me, he's like, there's a whole lot of unknown joy for you around fatherhood that you can't experience until you experience it. And when he said it in that way, I really got it. I was like, yes, I really get that. That's really true. I can really feel that's the truth of it, actually, that there's this joy that I can't know until I experience it. But all the things I lose, I know about because I've experienced them, now. So it's very easy to feel the fear and the loss and the grief of that. And not experience the joy because one's known and one is completely unknown. So that's one of the things that really helped, just like listening and talking and having conversations with people I knew. Another thing that helped me move through the fear is actually some of the work I did last year. I was in a men's program, which was like just breathing with the fear, like feeling it and feeling the actual fear instead of avoiding it or trying to run away from it or distract myself from it. It was like actually feeling it. Like I remember doing some breathwork journeys alone where the only thing I was just trying to feel as much of the fear that existed there. And I think there's this fear for men that if you feel fear, either you're going to be weak, it means that you're weak, that you're feeling this fear, or that it will be too much or overloading, or that it will be never ending. And what I found was like when I did some of this practice of feeling the fear, whether that's just breath or whether that is in other ways of kind of embodiment, is actually the fear was like it kind of burnt off, in the same way you may, I don't know, burn off gas or something like that, or get rid of something, it cleared away, right? So that was a big practice as well. Another thing I did was actually to start to change my story about having kids. I started to just observe people with their children or men with kids in particular, like in parks, or I was walking down the street, I was in shops. I would just observe from quite a neutral place of like just open to observing them and seeing them and being like, oh, look, they're having fun. Oh, look, the kid's just done that. Oh, he's looking like this and how, and looking at what was going on instead of projecting onto what I believed he was losing or how his life was shit because of what he was experiencing there. And that really was a little tiny thing I could do all the time, every day, everywhere I went. That made a big shift for me as well. Another thing I also did was I just kind of felt my own yearning, to be a father. Because underneath all the fear, underneath all the worry, underneath all that is a yearning, a desire, a yearning, to be a dad and to, have little children of my own and to take them places and show them things. And that was a really important part for me as well, because it's very easy for us to, with the fear being so prevalent and present, to never feel the yearning that's underneath. And that really helped me change my own kind of internal script. So some of the ways I just kind of moved through that. And they might sound like really tiny things, but I was very much kind of consistently doing these things. I was listening to podcasts as well by, again, men who are coaches and thought leaders who, again, I respect, and listen to what they said about fatherhood and their experiences. And like I would ask my podcast guests sometimes as well, actually, about it. And it made such a difference. And then I saw also, I remember being in the program I was in last year, and I saw, I was talking to some of the men in there, and many of them had children, 1, 2, 3 children, and talking to them about their experience as being a dad, and seeing that these guys have traveled some across the world to be in this program and do these intensives, and they can still do that while having kids. And I remember a man said to me, he was like, you know what, one of the things is that him and his partner have had agreements, and one of the agreements is they have protected things in their lives that like they both protect in their lives. So it's like alone time. For him, it's like doing certain retreats. For her, it's her more deeply meaningful work that she does, I think it was, or her time with her friends and family, and actually like listening and being like, wow, there's actually structures we can put in place. It doesn't have to be this doom and gloom of shitty nappies and no sleep for the rest of my life. That actually with some consciousness, I can create this to be something closer to what I would really love it to be. Made a huge difference. So where am I at now? It's a good question for myself there. 39 weeks. Also been pregnant now, and it's been a wild ride of pregnancy, just because, like, as a man, you're observing the pregnancy. You're not in it. You are in it in some capacity, but you are observing the baby growing inside your partner. You're seeing this little thing, this belly, grow bigger and bigger, and sometimes you feel the movements and so forth. But it's not you being pregnant. Your body isn't changing. Your life will change in an instant when the baby actually pops out. But it's not happening to me directly. So you're kind of an observer, but an expectant observer, because, you know, this is also going to change my life as well. And there's a lot of emotions come at different points. Maybe one day we'll tell the story a bit more in detail about the pregnancy and the ups and downs and the difficult things that happen sometimes. But for the most part, it's been, you know, a journey where we've been able to just talk about what we're afraid of, actually. You know, something you can talk about in relationship, like, oh, I'm really afraid that I won't know what to do, or that we're not going to have enough money, or we're not going to have the provisions that we want, you know, which is, in many ways, is stupid, because our businesses are doing pretty well, right? But there's still a fear there. And that value in having been able to talk about that fear has been invaluable in our relationship, because I think a lot of people don't have that. Because one of the reasons it's so important to talk about our fears in relationship, right, is because when we can talk about our fears, our partner can know us more deeply and they can empathize and be there for us. What we can't do when our partner starts talking about their fears and so forth is assume that their fears are what they think is going to happen, or what they want to happen, what they're telling us is going to happen. It's just their fear. It's just a fear, right? If I tell you I'm afraid of failing as a dad, it doesn't mean that, oh my God, I'm going to be a failure as a dad. It just means I fear that. Yeah. And that's a really important thing I think we have to be in relationship. And it's one of the things that I'm a big advocate for my clients, is being able to talk about our fears and worries and anxieties and insecurities in relationship. And I've been able to do that. And can I say now I'm free of fear and worry? Not at all. You know, now from time to time I have these panic moments of being like, oh fuck, we're having a baby. Like, what the fuck? They just let people have babies? No license, no questionnaires. Like, you just go into hospitals and they check stuff. And you kind of know it's an important moment. So that's where I am. Sometimes I'm really chill. And then there's moments where I wake up and I'm like, the first thing I do when I wake up is like, okay, wow, is there anything we need to remember? Is there anything we've forgotten? You know, like, one of the things that I've done through this pregnancy is like really bang on researching and finding out about the things that we need, you know, everything from breast pumps to cots to different types of birth techniques and all sorts of things. You know, I've been really hot on that, you know, and providing that information to Orsa, so she doesn't have to do that load a lot of the time. If I showed you some of the lists I had on my phone and so forth, or the Amazon wish list we have for the baby, like where I researched the best Muslims, for instance, you know, which brand has the best Muslims, which is the softest, most recommended, which is the best prams, you know, travel systems, car seats, what type of the best car seats, and all these sorts of things. I spent hours on this stuff because that's how I can really contribute. And taking some of that kind of cognitive, emotional load from Orsa and being there to support her. But yeah, it's been, you know, sometimes it's been hard, it's been emotional. Then even now, you know, sometimes I'm like, I feel a little sense of panic and worry and fear of loss and grief of the life that is slowly slipping through my hands. Not to say my life is over, because that's one of the narratives I had before, but that my life is going to change, and that, you know, in probably a few weeks' time, because he's due in the next week or so, my life won't be me sitting just doing a podcast on a Sunday without a care in the world. You know, I'll be doing this podcast and thinking, okay, after I come out of here, what do I need to sort something out with him? Do I need to help also with something? Blah, blah, blah. Our life will change. My life will not be my own or solely my own. My primary responsibility will not be to me, it'll be to this little being that needs nurturing and so forth. And that in itself can be I can be scared of that. You know, to be honest, a lot of the fears I had before, they haven't just disappeared. I just know that is not my path. That the fear is A, not what I want, and B, it doesn't have to control me. It's something I learned many years ago. My fear doesn't have to control me. If I can reorientate myself towards what I love, the fear will still exist, but it doesn't have to be the story. It doesn't have to be the projection I put into the future, right? So the fear and the worry and anxieties exist. You know, people often ask me now, how do I feel? And I say, I feel a lot. worried, scared, anxious, fearful, grieving a life, all these different emotions. And that's just me thinking a few off the top of my head. I haven't got my emotional wheel in front of me. So there's a lot, but I'm still here, and the baby's going to come, and some of it will be joyful, some of it won't. It doesn't have to stop us if we're willing to move through. But I'll stop there. Because I want to do a longer episode about the experience of being an expectant father. Just as a little snippet into my world. What I will end with is I'm going to be running a program for avoidant men. So if you think you lean that way, fear of commitment, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough in relationship, struggles of emotional intimacy, if those are kind of your hallmarks in relationship, most likely you're an avoidant man. I'm going to run a whole program for men, because if I'm able to go from scared of commitment, refusing to commit, or, only being open relationships, to then be having a baby and be pretty happy, being very happy in a monogamous relationship and feeling pretty calm about having a baby, and I see my clients make these shifts, then I have something to really offer you guys. And I know I do. I've got some wonderful tools and techniques that take you through. Probably going to be a 3-month program starting in probably September-ish time. So if that's something interesting to you, I've got a wait list that you can add yourself to down below. And by adding yourself to that wait list, instead of going, oh yeah, I'll do that later, if you add yourself to the wait list, you'll get massive discounts off the price of the program. And it'll be a safe space for avoidant men to grow and not just feel like we're shit and all the dating and all the relationship problems are our fault, because they're not. All the problems in your relationships aren't your fault. And I'll help you navigate those and so forth. But until next week, because hopefully there'll be another podcast next week. Until next week, I'll say ciao, ciao.